Now, at the start of the 1970s, the ban on Catholics attending Trinity College was lifted. It ushered in a period of change at the university and in turn throughout Irish society. Cathy Gilfillan is the author of Trinity Tales, Trinity College in the 70s, and she's here with us in the studio. Good afternoon, Cathy.
Good afternoon to you.
Was there a dramatic change once the ban was lifted? Was there a dramatic change on the campus in Trinity, or was it more of a gradual process?
Well, I think there were lots of Catholics who paid no attention to the ban, and they had to go and get permission from the bishop to attend. In the mid-70s, it's when you really saw the difference. The early 70s, there was much more of a mixture of students in Trinity. Following on from your last item, the book is really like an assortment of sweets.
Yes.
Some with hard centres, some with soft centres. I arrived in Trinity in 1968 and left in 1972. So I'm the editor of this book rather than the author, and I persuaded 38 people who had been there during the decade in the 70s to try and cough up memories, go back what is now 40 years, to say what it was like being there.
But one assumes that the traditional class of person who attended Trinity, who would have had a particular sort of background, that changed over a period of 3 or 4 years once the ban had been lifted.
Yes, well, if you think in the 70s, Joe Duffy was there. Michael Colgan, in his piece, writes about as a youngster passing Trinity and saying to his father, "What's that place, Dad?" And he said, "Oh, that's not for the likes of us," and walking on. And, when he got really good leaving cert results, he said, "I want to go to Trinity," and his father said, "Thought you might say that."
and he writes, is it him that writes about the battle he had with Paul McGuinness?
Well, it was not so much a battle as a minor skirmish for the chairmanship of players. And I think this generation, it was true that they honed their skills for later dealing with business, or in Michael's case, being a theatre director in Trinity, in players doing extracurricular activities rather than studying as hard as they should do.
In your own experience there, you had an involvement which at the time I think was quite common in some universities, of introducing contraception.
Yes.
Which of course at the time was hugely controversial and should have resulted in you being burned at the stake.
I wrote a guide to contraception with the help of the Mary Stopes Clinic in the UK, and it was illegal to publish anything about contraception then. So the SRC, which was the Students' Representative Council, said that the author would be the entire student population, so nobody could be prosecuted. It does seem extraordinary now, but yes, that was so.
And at the time, how did the university authorities react to this?
They were very cool about it. You could get condoms in the SRC offices out of a vending machine.
And was that ever closed down?
No,
never.
It wasn't. No.
Because I do remember, well, it was probably a bit later than the 70s, but there was a Virgin store that started selling them on the quays.
That was much later.
Yeah, but then that was taken out for some reason or another. There seemed to be in certain places that was a blind eye was turned, and others less so.
I think that was so in Trinity, and it may have been that they fudged it and it was contributions to something else. They may not have even called it condoms.
Ah, right, okay. So what would they have called them then?
I don't know what they called them. It might have been just a vending machine.
Was Trinity during the 70s, because you did mention Joe Duffy and there are lots of other names that one could cite there, was Trinity quite left-wing?
It was much more political than I think it is now. This was the 70s when the trouble in the north was predominant. the people who were student politicians, and I was one of them, used the dining room steps in Trinity as their podium. So if you had something to say, you climbed up and didn't have to stand in a soapbox. You just tried to capture people going past, with your speech. It was when 1972 was when the British Embassy was burnt. 1974, the Loyalist bomb went off outside the walls of Trinity, and Terence Brown describes how the bonnet landed on the cricket pitch. And it was a decade that was very tough in the way that it is now. We had a 6-month bank strike. People, you're too young to remember this, but people ran out of even checks. You wrote IOUs. There was no such thing as, a laser card or drink links. You just had to make do.
But in terms of how that affected the students within, and university is always a slightly cloistered environment, but did the outside world and those events in the outside world have a direct effect upon student politics within Trinity?
Absolutely, it did.
And in what sense?
The Students' Union was very vocal on all political issues. Ian Wilson was another student politician, Joe Revington. Trying to think who else.
Well, say, given that, given Trinity's background, would there have been a particular line taken on the north of Ireland, for instance?
The internationalists were in existence then. Mao's Little Red Book. Yes, there was a very left-wing feeling.
And would it have been a distinctly Republican feeling? Because that's not necessarily the same as being a...
Not distinctly Republican, but there was that undercurrent as well.
So they would have been tacitly supporting the Provos?
No, not at all. There was debate always, and you always seem to have to end up every speech with, I want a 32-county republic. It was more like a full stop.
That was the kind of a standard mantra, and I suppose it's an entire. Could you argue there was an entire generation of people who came out of Trinity during that 70s who are influencing Irish society now, or in positions of power in Irish society now?
They all seem to be running things. Because if you get to the age of 59 or 60, you must be running something.
And so, does Ireland today seem shaped by that?
No, I think Ireland today, this is 40 years we're talking about. Ireland today was more shaped by what happened 10 years ago with the property developers.
Yeah.
And they're all 10 years younger.
So, because in a way, there's a mixture of barristers, politicians, journalists who came out of Trinity during that time.
A lot of journalists. Fidelma Mackin, who's in the book, is a judge. There are barristers, but there was a strong emphasis on arts people. I find that the people that could write best tend to already want to be journalists or be in the media or be actors or be entertainers, and that they were the most articulate.
And that they went on then to art stroke media. It tended to have the greatest effect coming out.
Yes, you have Donald Taylor Black, who runs the Dunleary Film Institute. We've got Paolo Tullio, who you must know well.
Yes, I've met the man, all right, once or twice. Yes.
Well, I always say if I'm on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Paolo would be my phone a friend, because he has such a wide knowledge of everything.
Yes. He comes in once a week to talk about food, but rarely does.
No, and he was like that in college as well. He was very funny, but he was the one who would know the Latin name for something.
And of course, I don't even know what he did his degree in.
I don't think he does either.
I don't think he does either, because then as soon as he left college he started selling cows.
In gold welly boots.
Which is a very typically a Paolo thing. Mary Harney was there during that time
Mary Harney was there in mid-70s. In 1976 she was the first female auditor of the Historical Society, which was the debating society, which only let women in a couple of years before that. And when you became auditor of the Hist, you automatically became a member of the Kildare Street Club. And when Mary went along to say, hello, I'm your new member, they said, oh, we're very sorry, we can't admit you. And she said, but I'm the auditor of the Hist. And they said, we're barring you not because you're a woman, but because you're not a man.
Okay, that's a Jesuitical distinction, I would have thought. Kathy, thanks a million for coming in to talk to us today. That is Kathy Gilfillan there. She's the editor of Trinity Tales, Trinity College in the 1970s.